Today's episode of the Get Your Comic On podcast may contain mild spoilers for the movies, shows, comic books, and games that we're discussing. And, if you're lucky, there might be some PG-13 language. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. Hey super friends, it's Neil and we are back with a brand new episode of the Get Your Comic On podcast where we are going to talk to you about some new releases which we are very excited to share with you. Today I am joined by Aaron, who is back. I have forced him to force me back in front of the microphone after an accidental break that went on accidentally longer than it was ever accidentally supposed to. Aaron, how you doing?
I'm all right, thank you.
Someone in a queue for a screening actually said to me, "You haven't podcasted since February. What's going on?"
They're starting to put the pieces together.
Yeah. So I was like, "Oh shit, better do one." Well, right, it was February the last time we did this, so I do apologize.
Yeah, it feels like ages ago, actually.
Yeah, I know. We had such grand plans. But for anyone who follows me on social media, will know that, not to make this too heavy too early on, before talking about Final Destination, I had a couple of bereavements towards the end of last year, one towards the end of last year and one at the beginning of this year. And so I've had quite a lot to deal with and sort out, as well as quite a lot going on in my mind. So I needed a bit of a sort of calm down. I needed to do a little bit less work before I had a complete mental breakdown. And so podcasting had to take a little break, but hopefully this is the beginning of us getting back into a bit of a cycle. So I do apologize to those of you who tune in regularly. I am very sorry that we were away for a little while, but at least we had a good reason.
It's all worth it in the end.
Yeah. That being said, we have a lot that we're very excited to talk about right now. There's been so much that we kind of had planned, or that I had planned, that we were going to talk about. We had anniversaries of stuff. Like today, as we were recording this, today is actually 20 years since Revenge of the Sith released in US cinemas. We had all these things that we were going to talk about, but instead, we are going to talk to you about a movie, which is Final Destination Bloodlines, that's in UK cinemas now. And because I was like, ooh, I have a thing that Aaron and I can talk about, which is very exciting, that other people I haven't really seen. I don't know anyone else that has watched this other than you and I. We're going to talk about brand new Apple TV Plus series MurderBot, starring Alexander Skarsgård, of which the first 2 episodes are available to stream now. And then there's a bunch of like coming soon stuff that I want to start hyping. But before we do that, I also want to talk about the Superman trailer because it's me and it's DC. So we had a brand new trailer for Superman which dropped last week. 3 whole minutes of Superman that was released last week that I am completely in love with. But I don't know that you and I have spoken about this kind of one-on-one about what you thought about this trailer. Because it dropped as we were, like, those of us in London were all sort of running into Mission Impossible, which unfortunately you couldn't make it for. So I haven't really seen you to talk about this. What did you think of the Superman trailer?
To be honest, even though I didn't go to Mission Impossible, it did kind of drop at a bit of a hectic week for me. So I do remember watching it, but at the same time, like, a day later, I was like, did I watch it? Yes, no, I did. So I rewatched it again. I like it.
I essentially watch it sort of once per hour is where I'm at right now.
I love that. Absolutely love that. I like a lot. One of my main concerns that I said way back when me and James did like a roundup of what's to come.
We were doing what's to come, yeah.
Yeah, one of my main concerns, and this kind of became more prevalent with this trailer, is that I am a bit worried with how stuffed it is looking with the amount of people and the amount of things going on, and I'm just worried. I mean, I've got full trust in James Gunn, but I'm just a little bit concerned about, like, is it too much too soon? But I will leave full judgment. That's more just a concern in the back of the head. I will save those concerns until we get to the actual film itself. But apart from that, I like the look of it. I like the vibe of it. I like the personality they've given Superman, and I saw a whole breakdown on this, but I kind of noticed it anyway. Is that I like the fact that what's his name, David Corenswet, is
Yep.
doing the oh god, I'm blanking on names. The original guy that played him.
Christopher Reeve.
Oh, that's the one. Yeah, he's doing the Christopher Reeve thing where he's giving Clark Kent and Superman different personalities that are
Yeah.
distinguishable, and we haven't really had that for a while. Like Henry Cavill sort
He,
of did
he
it.
didn't really get chance, did he? And
No.
this is probably one of the biggest kind of letdowns for his version of the character was that he didn't really get chance to do any of that because he never
Mm,
really got chance to be Clark. Because
no.
in Man of Steel, he's so consumed by finding out his heritage because he doesn't know his heritage that he's off traveling the world, so he's not Clark Kent reporter.
Mm,
And then the theatrical cut of Batman versus Superman cut out that whole storyline of him being a reporter,
yeah.
and it's sort of buried in the Ultimate Edition. And what you see is pretty good, but he just
Mm.
doesn't get much chance to do it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the things that can make, because I feel like a lot of people can sometimes look at Superman and see like a very cut and paste thing of just like, oh, it's this and nothing else. But when you add that element that Christopher Reeve added,
Yeah,
it adds a layer of complexity that you wouldn't necessarily. It's something that can only come across in an actor's performance, maybe not
yeah,
necessarily in the comics, but it came through in those original films.
yeah,
And I like the fact that they're doing that. I also like the fact that there is a level of, because again, Superman is usually seen as like a very stoic character, but in the few glimpses we get of him in the trailer, there's a bit of personality there.
yeah.
Specifically, the bit where he's like, "Look at me," and then flies
Eyes
up.
up.
That whole bit is just like, I like the fact they've given him a bit of like, not snarkiness, but like there's just something there. It's like David Corenswet's putting a bit of his own spin on it, but that's
Yeah,
probably a James Gunn direction too. But yeah, I like it. I like the look of it. I like the personality of it all. I think that is probably the biggest takeaway of this is just I like the personality of everything this is going for.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I really like the way they chose to frame the trailer as well by talking about um so it's the interview between Rachel Brosnahan as Lois and
Mm,
Superman, but not in costume because it's sort of off camera,
yeah.
just at home. Um, and the fact that they're talking about this conflict that he's gotten involved with,
Mm,
that has clearly gotten him in trouble with the US government, but
mm,
he's adamant that he wasn't acting on behalf of the US government, he was acting on behalf of himself.
mm,
Because the rumor is that it's a country from the comics called Baravia, and
mm,
you glimpse the kid with the flag in the trailer, that he's gone and stopped them warring with another nation nearby. I think it's Eastern Europe. Was it Africa? Can't quite remember which part of the world it's in. I'm pretty sure Baravia is somewhere in Eastern Europe. I think it might even be mentioned in Creature Commandos as well. Um, that
mm.
he's gone and waded into this conflict, but he's seen it as American because that's where he's from,
Yeah.
even though he's saying he's acting on behalf of himself. So I find that quite interesting as well because we're getting a bit of the politics, which I know some people will say we got that in Batman versus Superman because obviously he waded into a conflict to save Lois in that film,
Yeah.
and then Lex was setting him up. I have a feeling Lex is probably setting him up in this as well.
Mm,
But I just really enjoy everything that we get to see, and I'm often not massively a fan of when it's not shot on film and it's more digital. And this
mm.
feels very digital and it's so sharp.
Yeah.
That being said, I had not seen the teaser trailer at the cinema until only a couple of weeks ago
Mm,
when I can't even remember what it was I was at. I went to something a couple of oh, Thunderbolts. I
mm.
finally saw it with Thunderbolts. It was the first time I'd seen it at the cinema. And that like razor sharp picture that you get when you're watching it on your computer or your phone
Yeah.
screen looked beautiful on the cinema screen. So I was like,
Mm,
oh, okay, cool. Actually, it's cinematic as well as being really sharp and crisp. Um, I'm excited. Very well. Why would
mm,
there is not that you can see it because it's slightly out of focus, but at the
mm,
bottom of that random pile of Funko which has appeared,
mm.
because I don't have anywhere to put it yet, is a David Corenswet Superman,
Love that.
which just came out. I will. I need to do like an unboxing for it. But yeah, this is the first of the Funkos for the movie.
I love
So
that.
it's him on a little. So he's flying, which I picked up literally yesterday, which I'm very
Nice.
excited to add to the collection. So I'm diving in on the movie merch early. Um, I'm
I
trying to think if
still.
there's anything else that I did do a breakdown when I got back from Mission Impossible. I
Mm,
realized this is going to sound awful. Sorry to those of you who are listening on podcast platforms, having to listen to me unbox Funko. Yes. If you're watching on YouTube, I am waving the little Superman. I love that they put the S on the back of the cape as well for this costume because
that's really well detailed for a Funko as well, because
it is.
sometimes they can feel a bit.
It's got all the fine detail in there, which
Yeah.
is, yeah, he's very cool. So I normally don't actually unbox them, which I realize I've just ripped him straight out of the box, but he's going to sit on my desk. Yeah, I lost my train of thought. I don't know what I was going to say. There was something else about the trailer that I was going to point out. Oh, I did a breakdown. Yeah, sorry, I did a
Mm.
breakdown when I got back from Mission Impossible. So it was like 11 o'clock at night, and you can watch it now. It's up on YouTube. It's me really deliriously just watching it in 4K for the first time because I'd only seen it on my phone, and I'm just like, hmm, oh, oh. Uh, but I do think it's just really nice to have a. I want to call it traditional, but it's not like
Mm.
entirely traditional. It's like mostly traditional, very comic book take, but
Yeah.
still with contemporary movie sensibility. So I am very excited to see where it goes.
Yeah. I think the other reason why I like the look of it so much is because, again, it goes back to me saying it's got personality, but it looks and feels more more different. I just saw him pop up in my peripheral, and that just made me jump a little bit. It just. Oh, I've lost my train of thought now.
He's going to make
Uh,
periodic appearances. For those who are watching this on YouTube, David Corenswet, Funko Corenswet, is just going to appear every now and then and just like,
take up the screen. Love it.
yeah,
Um, I guess I think the thing I was trying to say is that it just looks and feels. I can't really compare it to another comic book film that's come out in recent years in
mm,
terms of like look of it. At least the style of it. I guess the only thing you could really compare it to is the Suicide Squad, but that's kind of it, maybe.
yeah. I guess in terms of filming, kind of technology and the
Just,
look of the film, it's got a similar look to
yeah.
that. It's can I'm sure people will say some of it looks quite flat
Hmm,
because it's so razor sharp focus.
hmm,
It does have a similar look, I think. It has the gun look in that
hmm.
respect, but it's like Gun's DC look, not Gun's.
Marvel look,
It doesn't
yeah.
look like Guardians at all.
Hmm,
Um, it's yeah, it seems to be the look they're going for with the DCU, at least for what he's working on.
hmm. Yeah, I quite like it. It kind of brings the bright, bold, contrasty colours that you kind of miss from the comic books, and it
Yeah,
kind of puts it into the film. Which this isn't a dip at modern comic book films, but like they've all kind of gone for a specific palette,
yeah,
and it's only I would say Thunderbolts has kind of broken that a little bit because it goes for a bit more of a grounded, grittier
yeah. It does.
look, and I feel like Superman is the other end of that spectrum, and I guess Fantastic Four as well. Kind of
I
is
think Man
going
of
a
Steel's
bit
my biggest
different.
bugbear as to how grey it is. How
Yeah.
like that, in a way, is one of the reasons why it was so misinterpreted that
Mm,
it was going to be like a too serious version of the character because it's just so grey when you watch it. And that's no offense to the film because I love the film, but
mm.
Superman just isn't a grey character.
No, it's borderline black and white at
It is
times.
at times. I mean, maybe there's a black and white version out there. Maybe we can sit and completely desaturate it and see what it looks like.
Man of Steel, Glorious and Chrome, or whatever the
Yeah,
Fury Road black and white edit was called.
yeah. I think the other thing actually that's worth mentioning that's quite exciting is how much of the universe is being built without you
Mm,
realizing. So like the fact, and I know there's been a couple of tweets that have gone a bit viral about it, but that by the end of this year,
mm.
you will have seen Frank Grillo as Rick Flag Sr. in three different projects by the end of this year, because he's animated in Creature Commandos, he
Yeah.
is in Superman, and he's in Peacemaker season 2 with a really major role. So
Right,
you
okay.
will have seen him three times, and within the next kind of 12 months moving on, you will have
Mm,
also seen Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner three times because he is in Superman. He's in the
Mm,
trailer for Peacemaker season two. He's not. He's
mm,
unlikely to be in it all that much, but he's in Peacemaker season two,
yeah.
and then he's in Lanterns that we now know is going to be out either the end of this year or early next year, probably early next year.
Mm,
So the little like as much as you won't have seen Superman in a bunch of different projects. All
yeah.
these people that are populating the DCU will have kind of cooked around a little while, and you will have seen them in
Mm,
various different places. The other exciting thing about that is the different types of ways you will have seen them. So, like, again,
mm,
Grillo being in animation, then in a movie, then in TV, and going from a kind of R-rated, gory cartoon
yeah.
to blockbuster family movie
Mm,
to kind of R-rated live action TV, but
mm,
then seeing Guy Gardner go from big blockbuster family movie to
mm,
James Gunn peacemaker weird humor to then
mm.
the grittiness of what they talk about Lanterns being like that HBO show that I've never watched, the anthology show that's about crime.
Oh.
Matthew McConaughey was in one
Oh,
season.
True Detective.
Thank you. So Lanterns is being compared to being very True Detective-esque.
Oh,
It's like an
that's an interesting
Earth-based
one.
murder mystery type story that is
Ooh.
about Green Lanterns. So you're seeing characters. Not only are
Mm,
you seeing characters in multiple projects, you're seeing them in multiple projects that are very different styles as well, to kind of
mm,
show how Superman can appear in different projects or Green Lantern can appear in different projects and different styles, and they will just play it as
mm.
them, but in a different kind of way, which I don't really feel like you get in the MCU so much because it has a similar to
Yeah.
Marvel's comics, it has a overarching style of all of their movies.
Mm.
Whereas DC's obviously going for this different projects can be different genres.
Yeah. I
It's going to be
think,
interesting to see how characters bend and flex with that.
yeah, I was gonna say, like, even when the MCU in the last, like, couple of phases has tried to go in a different direction, like Multiverse of Madness being horror,
Mm. It was
or,
still
yeah,
Marvel does horror.
yeah, it still had that. I suppose the only, like, drastic shift is when you go to, like, the
Werewolf by
MCU
Night.
stuff. Well, yeah, Werewolf by Night was a drastic shift, but then I suppose the other drastic shift is probably the Netflix shows.
Yeah,
But
true.
even them, to an extent, you're still like your brain kind of puts two and two together that they're still connected, despite how gory and violent they can be.
Yeah,
Um, you still kind of mentally are like, yeah, this is. I can still see this happening in like the back alley like area of
yeah.
the MCU. But yeah, it all still kind of feels like MCU. You've just sold me on Lanterns because I really don't know much about it outside of the three cast members that have been announced, the
Mm.
three different Lanterns, which that alone has sold me because I like those actors.
Great. Yeah, I
Um,
mean the casting is very cool.
mm,
I know
yeah,
people are worried about characters who are traditional Justice League members being
mm,
quite old.
yeah,
No offense to any actors who are in it, but they have pitched a couple of characters older than you would have expected them to be if they were to be
mm,
alongside David Corenswet. But
it is what it is.
there's no reason why you can't get a younger version of one of those actors in to do a,
Yeah,
period piece.
yeah, yeah, and I can already see like this is establishing what they currently are. I can already
Yeah.
see like prequel projects coming out of the woodwork to
Yeah.
then give them the backstory. I mean, I don't know if that will happen, but like there's room for
Yeah. I mean,
interpretability.
if you go back to, I love how I've managed to, by saying, oh, let's just chuck in a bit of talk about Superman, I've managed to derail the entire podcast. Um, if you go back to James Gunn's announcement of the first slate of projects,
Yeah.
you had the Themyscira show, which is
Mm,
basically DC does Game of Thrones, that
mm,
is supposed to be several hundred years before Diana's even born.
mm,
It's like the politics of Themyscira. So they're obviously planning to build them up quite a lot through that, and they're obviously mentioned
mm,
in Creature Commandos because the whole idea was that the sons of Themyscira terrorist group were trying to take over the island of women because they needed to have men there.
mm,
The right wingers loved that. Um, so I mean, they're obviously not against working on projects that go back in time and can
mm.
be like, let's tell something in the future, let's tell something in the past, let's
Yeah.
connect everything up to all its different ways and show how where it went or where it came from. So
Mm. Yeah. No, I like the fact that I think there is a way that they can be done well with all of these projects being a different tone and a different style.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where
That's
like
what
I'm
has me
happy.
excited about it more than anything, I think.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see how those styles work, and at this rate, with knowing Gunn's reputation, I'm just more. I just want to. How do I put it? I just more can't wait to see it executed rather than like hearing all these things, whether they
Yeah.
might work or they won't. I just want to see them and then
Yeah.
go from there,
Right.
sort of thing.
There's only I can hype Gun if you're listening
Yeah,
to this. I can hype as long as you need me to hype.
yeah,
However, at some point we're going to have to evidence it.
yeah, yeah.
I can hype
We
man
need the
only so
backup.
long.
Yeah, we need the backup.
But why don't you let us know what you thought of the Superman trailer? Please do find us on social media. You can find me at Neilvag on all major platforms. Aaron, where can people find you if they want to tell you what they thought of the Superman trailer?
Oh God, Arun Azza is my tag on most social media platforms, but my YouTube and my TikTok is Aaron at the movies.
So come find us, tell us what you thought of the Superman trailer, whether you liked it, whether you didn't like it. If you didn't like it, my only caveat is that you need to give me some wonderful and well thought out and intelligent context as to why. Because if you say to me, it's just not Snyder, I'll press the block button.
Love that.
But sticking with Warner Brothers and New Line Cinema, the one of the big things that I wanted to make sure that we talked about in this episode was Final Destination Bloodlines, which is in cinemas globally now. It came out in the UK on the 14th, and I think it came out in the US
Yeah,
a little bit
14th.
later. We got it first somehow, I think. Um, I got very confused as to what day of the week it was out, and I confused the review embargo with release day, and then we nearly missed it.
Ah,
Um, so this is the sixth film in the franchise.
yep.
I don't know, and feel free to feel free to correct me if this is misinformation. But I read somewhere last night that this actually started out as a streaming movie that was going to go to HBO Max. Um, which I
That
can
I
say
wasn't
again
aware
now
of.
and is actually accurate because we've added
Yeah,
the HBO back into the title.
yeah.
I never called it just Max. I've always called it HBO Max. But I've just gone from being accurate to accurate again. Yeah, so I don't know how true that is, but apparently this was first envisioned as a streaming thing and ended up theatrical.
That's
Um,
the first I've heard of it.
I couldn't even tell you off the top of my head where it was I saw it, but I saw it somewhere at about 11 o'clock last night while I was doom scrolling.
That
Um,
would it wouldn't surprise me in all fairness.
No, I
Like
then
it wouldn't
suddenly thought,
surprise me.
actually, budget wise, no
Mm,
offense to the film, and we'll get to it, but that kind of fits
mm,
for me. And also, maybe again, no offense to anyone, but maybe casting wise, because this is a very TV heavy cast.
yeah.
And I say that because if you follow me on Twitter, you'll know that nine of the cast members of this film are from either main or recurring roles in DC TV shows.
Hmm. Didn't know that.
Yep. I can rattle them off. So you have Breck Bassinger, who is Iris in 1968.
Hmm.
She was Stargirl in Stargirl. She was literally the lead. You had Caitlin Santana Guana, who plays Stephanie, the lead in the present day.
Mm.
She is a recurring character in The Flash, the Grant Gustin Flash show.
Okay.
Richard Harmon, also in the Flash show. So he is Eric, the tattooist brother.
Yeah.
He was Captain Boomerang in The Flash and was in one of the
Okay.
major crossovers in the Arrowverse. Anna Law, who plays Julia, who, spoiler alert, sorry, gets crushed in the garbage truck.
Mm.
She she plays Stephanie Brown, who would in theory have gone on to become a Robin. Her name is Spoiler in the comics. In the very short-lived CW TV show Gotham Knights,
Mm.
she was basically the lead of that show. Who else was? Tony Todd is one of the villains in Flash season 3 or season 4. He was Zoom.
Mm.
He was the voice of Zoom. Gabrielle Rose, I think, was in an episode of Smallville or a couple of episodes of Smallville.
Mm.
Uh, you also have Alex Zahara was in episodes of Supergirl and I think Smallville as well. Raya Kilstead, I hope I pronounced that right, who plays
Yeah.
Darlene, the mum of Stephanie and Charlie in Final Destination, is the villain in season 3 of Superman and Lois, like
Yeah.
the big villain.
And
It's
she's
revolves.
also one of the bad guys in Home Alone 3, which for some reason I couldn't get out of my head the
No
entire
way.
time.
Um,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of DC people, and weirdly, the directors have not done any DC stuff.
No.
The writers aren't connected, and the casting director isn't either. So it's weirdly sort of Warner Brothers coincidental.
Hmm.
But a lot of them are TV actors. But then I kind of feel like, because I've been rewatching the old Final Destination films,
Hmm.
quite a lot of these films have a lot of TV kind of cast. Like even Ali
Hmm.
Larter, but like way back to the first one.
Hmm.
And Sher, is it Kerr Smith who was in the first one? Is it
Yeah.
Sher? I can never remember whether it's
It's
Sher or Kerr.
Kurt Smith.
Is Dawson's Creek is
Hmm.
what a lot of people will know him from. So
Hmm.
they do seem to they like to pluck from TV actors and give them a big break on the big screen, which is very cool. Um,
Hmm.
I went really off piece there. Uh,
We love
so
a
my
tangent.
history with this franchise, I've actually only seen one, two, and now six. I need to
Hmm.
watch three, four, five.
Hmm.
I had never seen them. What about you?
So for me, Final Destination was it was a bit like Saw when I was growing up, where it was one of those like edgy, gory franchises that I was weirdly like, I really want to watch them. I know I'm not old enough, but I really want to. But I only watched the first five for the first time last year for a
Yep.
video I did for Halloween on my YouTube channel.
Yep.
God, it made me jump. Oh my god. For context, anyone listening, Funko Pop Superman just scared the living Jesus out of me. Um,
I actually think that we may have just discovered, for when you are on co-hosting, a new tradition.
no. Oh god. This will be my last episode.
At the end of the year, there's just going to be an outtake reel of all the times that I've scared you with Funko Corn Sweat.
Oh god,
Sorry,
that's gonna be
Ed, I
fun.
broke your train of thought.
It's
So you only
alright.
watched it last year?
Yeah, I watched all five of them last year after years of like hyping them up in my
Yeah.
head, and I know this is a bit of a bold statement, having only recently seen them, but I think it's very quickly become one of my favorite horror franchises, purely down to how consistent it is.
Mm.
Like, even though the fourth one is probably my least favorite, it's still watchable. Like, I'll still happily stick it on. I think Alien's probably my favorite franchise for quality reasons, but for pure consistency,
I mean, it's
yeah,
blockbuster entertainment value.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
so they're all even well from the ones I have seen,
mm,
even when they're at their most like kind of cheesy, schlocky, predictable,
mm.
they're still really entertaining in a fun way.
Yeah. I think I kind of realised this as I was watching the first five is that I sort of prefer and lean more towards the ones a bit like Bloodlines, where there is that tongue in cheek, not
Yeah.
taking itself that seriously, but the characters are taking it 100%
Yes.
seriously as if it's. Because my favourites up to this point are the original and five, because the characters feel like they're in a drama, but they're put in this really over the top situation.
Yeah.
And that is that element of paranoia that really just works on top of the like over the top deaths and all of that stuff. That's the element that always kind of intrigues me, and I'm really glad that this one kind of leans more towards that and less towards Final Destination 4, where it's just,
Okay, so tell
stupid.
me, what's the issue with four? What does four try and go too serious?
So, for all of them are fairly consistent in like the tone,
Yeah.
except for four, which goes a bit overboard with. For first of all of the effects of like out of all of them, the effects in fourth one have aged the worst
Okay.
because 99% of them are CG, and it's the one film that relies heavily on the 2009 3D gimmick where
Ah,
everything's going towards
flying
the
at the screen.
screen,
Okay,
but also
I'm
it
with you.
has some of the stupidest deaths in the series because at least in all of the others, though the deaths are like over the top, they're somewhat plausible to an extent.
Yeah.
The fourth one, there are some where it's like, yeah, no, that's not you have to really suspend disbelief for quite a few of them. Plus, none of the characters are likable in that film at all. They're all the worst.
Is now
Um,
time to say,
yeah.
for those who are interested in the top 10 deaths from the Final Destination franchise.
Yep.
Somebody who is on this podcast who is not me has got you covered.
Yeah, as soon as I finished watching them last year, I was like, I need to do a list of this. And the annoying thing is, now having seen Bloodlines, we'll get more onto this in a minute, but there is a double whammy death in this film that would very easily go at the top. Like, I'm just saying, it's for me. I'm not. I just want to clarify this. I'm not the sadistic sort of like gore hungry, like, oh yeah, I love death in films. But there is a double whammy death in this film, which is like for the series for me is an all timer just because of how relentless it is. We will do more. We will go more in depth in it in a bit.
Yep, we will.
But my jaw was on the floor.
So the synopsis of this film is plagued by a recurring violent nightmare. A college student returns home to find the one person who can break the cycle and save her family from the horrific fate that inevitably awaits them. It is basically the biggest film in the world right now. It is the number
Yep.
one film in the world right now as we are recording this. Now, if I am getting my stats right, the previous record holder in the franchise was an opening weekend, domestic open weekend in the US of 27 million.
Mm.
And this one, I think that might have been five.
It
Um,
wouldn't surprise me if it was five.
and this one, going into the weekend, they were originally talking about 35 million,
Mm.
and it looked like it was going to be more like 45. Then it was at 50, but it's the final figure seems to be 51.7 million. So
Yep.
globally, opening weekend for this film is between 102 and 103 million, which
Yep.
I believe this film also cost 50 million to make.
Yeah.
So we basically went into profit in 3 days.
Yeah.
And
Love that.
I like to report numbers because it's an interesting thing to talk about from an industry standpoint. I don't decide whether I like a film or not based on how well it does at the box office.
Yep.
Not to cast aspersions on anybody that does. Uh, but that's amazing for the franchise. I mean, obviously, there's now going to be a seventh one. I mean, they've not confirmed anything, but there is bound to be a seventh one at this point
Oh
because
yeah.
basically what we're saying is it's the most popular franchise around right now in terms of horror.
Mm.
I think that might be the biggest R-rated opening weekend of the US this year. It's opened bigger than Sinners.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
still hail as the film of the century, never mind the film of the year.
Yeah. Sinners is still like best film of
Yeah.
the year at the moment.
Yes. Uh, so congratulations to
Mm.
directors Zach Lipovsky and Adam B. Stein because not only have they resurrected this franchise 13 years later, but 25 years after the first film,
Mm.
they've basically made this as popular as Scream being back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mad.
Yeah. I think that's what I kind of love about the series is that like no one's really talked about it since it went away in 2011.
No, I don't feel like it's a thing that people talk about all that much.
Yeah, which is kind of the reason why I wanted to watch them all last year because I feel like
Yeah.
it's the underdog of the horror franchises. Like, yeah, Saw
Yeah.
gets talked about and Scream gets talked about, but Final Destination always kind of gets like either forgotten about or not talked about as much.
Yeah. I know
And
what you mean.
now having seen them all, and now knowing how well this one's doing, I mean, it's obviously popular, and I'm
Yeah.
kind of glad it's got that appreciation back because it's also probably it's the best reviewed one in the series as well.
Well,
Well, I think it's on.
I'm sure it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's also a testament because I know when the series was at its height, it I guess again similar to some other horror franchises, some of the big
Probably not
ones.
reviewing all that well, but doing well at the box
Yeah,
office to a
the
certain degree.
the reviews were always rather scathing, going like, "Oh, this is pointless and stuff."
Yeah.
But this one seems to have clicked with audiences and critics. I think because it's been away for such a long time, and it feels like a nice, refreshing thing of like, oh, actually, it's kind of nice to have it back again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. So I thought we would break our review up and attack it in a sort of structured manner,
Okay.
very new for us, and go. We took kind of talk about the story of it, then casting characters,
Mm.
kills, obviously, and then
Yeah.
we'll kind of give our final thoughts on it. So story-wise, um, this really impressed me
Mm.
because it flips the franchise on its head to begin with. Spoiler alert! I've already said we were going to go into spoilers on this, but we are going to go full on spoilers into this.
Yep.
Opening in the past and then it jumping to the present day. And in actual fact, we've spent the entire time in a vision rather than going into a vision.
Mm.
Nice and different.
Yep.
obviously everyone in the audience is then instantly confused why someone in 2025 is having a vision of 1960. I don't know why I'm calling it 1968. I know it's the 1960s, but for some reason in my head I've decided it's 68.
Yeah, I don't think they ever specify like the exact year that
Yeah,
event happens. They just go, "Oh, it's the 60s."
60s.
Yeah.
Um, Very interesting way to take on it. And then, and Matt, who did the review for this film for us over on the website,
Mm,
and I've had this debate about whether they really explicitly just connected every single film in the franchise, or
mm,
whether it's connecting bits of it and some of it sort of implication implied.
mm.
Because I don't think it really does go all the way to completely outright connect every film, but I think it's safe to say they
No.
are all now connected to that incident.
Yeah, there is a mention of. I'm trying to think what the connection. I mean, they show
You
the log.
see, right, so if we're going for a lot of spoilers.
Yeah.
So the flashback at the beginning of this film sees Breck Bassinger, who I was just saying played Stargirl, brilliant
Mm,
in this film, playing a young version of Iris, who is the grandmother of our two leads,
mm,
played by Caitlin as Stephanie and T. O'Briones as Charlie.
mm.
She is their grandmother, uh, maternal grandmother. She had a premonition in the 60s that saved everyone from a terrible bit of VFX, but terrible accident in a
Yeah.
tower restaurant. We'll talk more about that sequence because I have a feeling that might be the double kill that you're talking about, unless you're talking about the one at the end of the film, because there's a couple of double kills
Yeah,
that I
I've.
quite like.
I'll
Um,
get more into that later. Which one I mean?
but her having that premonition saved several hundred people, which is the biggest we've ever seen, right, in the franchise.
Yeah,
It's always been the
because
group of like randy teenagers who are the lead pack of the film,
yeah,
whereas
because
this was
even
like several hundred people that got rescued from this restaurant.
yeah, because even in because I think up to this point, five had the biggest like
Mm.
disaster that starts the film off.
Yeah.
And I think you know, in the film where like they're recovering and then they see a news report that confirms how many died. I think that one, 93 people die on the bridge when that
Yeah.
collapses. But obviously, we're just focusing on the tiny group that survived.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I think this is the first time the series has done something that should have been like a lot of deaths,
Yeah.
and the majority of them actually survived, rather than seven survive and then like 100 people cop
God.
it. Yeah.
Because of that, Iris is then somehow kind of aware of it and pieces together that there is a puzzle to do with death, which obviously then ties into what we know death has been doing all the way along in all of these films. But
Mm.
it's all a knock-on effect, and it's all to do with the bloodlines of people who were in the restaurant when she saved them. So it's then coming for any person who shouldn't be alive because somebody that she saved is
Yeah.
alive. So because that was in the 1960s and we're now 2025, there are children, grandchildren, great grandchildren who all
Yeah.
shouldn't exist, which means basically deaths after everyone.
Yep.
Everyone is kind of on the slab in this one.
Mm.
And that's where I think it's trying to say that everyone in every film is connected. And so what I was going to say was, sorry, Iris has that book. Iris has a book where she's put together news clippings and she's been trying to track people that were in the restaurant who
Yeah.
had then died and track their bloodlines. And in that book, you see the log truck
Mm.
and you see the plane. So I think it at least connects one and two. But I
Yeah.
presume the implication moving on from that is that everyone, in some way, someone in every single film must have had a connection to someone who was in the restaurant.
Yeah. I think in terms of her book, they're the only two explicit ones. There
Yeah.
is a verbal mention from Tony Todd's character about, I'm trying to think, the main character from the second film being the only like
Oh
one
yeah.
who actually cheated it.
Yes.
But apart from that, I think those are the only like explicit things, and even then, I'm not 100% sure. I'm trying to remember now.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think it was a good job of recontextualizing the story, connecting it all up,
Mm,
or offering the potential for connection between all of them
mm,
to say these aren't all just random events that have happened. They are somewhat random, but they may be somewhat random because death has this really, really grand plan that actually possibly can stem back to one really big incident from years ago that caused
mm.
knock on after knock on after knock on, and you suddenly think, wow, this is actually a lot more complex. Um,
Mm.
And then obviously over the top of that then becomes here's the group of people that are all trying to save themselves. The difference now being it's one family rather than just a random group of like high schoolers that happen to be in the same place at the same time.
Yeah,
What did you think of the story?
I really appreciated that whole angle actually because I like again I think even though all of the Final Destination films work to a very specific formula, I think the ones that work the most are the ones that either that try and not try and break the formula, but they try and mix things up a little bit.
Yep.
I think especially the third one up to this point didn't entirely rewrite the formula, but had an interesting way of going about how they try and prevent each of the deaths from happening
Yeah.
and put like a kind of murder mystery spin on it. Whereas this one, I think having it all be a family, this is probably the most I've cared about a group of characters in any of the films up to this point. Like, yeah, I've
Yeah.
really liked the cast in the group of characters in the original, but because they're all family, and because obviously in a family there are like what's the word? There are certain members of the family that get on better with others, so you've instantly got like a couple off to the side that are instantly like they're a couple and they're a couple that you root
Yeah.
for, and I like um
They're
that
probably the most
variety.
well realized set of characters in any. Well, again, I obviously
Yeah,
haven't seen all of them. In terms of the ones that I have seen, they're the most well written and well rounded characters. They're the ones that feel the most real.
the closest is probably five up to this point because again they feel like just a group of people that all work in the same company that are just stuck in this situation and are trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And again I think the way they're written in that one and the performances help kind of ground that. They take it uber seriously even though the deaths are completely over the top like I said earlier, and here there's more of that, but it's kind of amped up to the extreme because they're all close, they're all related,
Yeah.
and there is that connectivity. And there are some characters in particular that this is the first time in the series where like when they do die, it's actually kind of you're sad to see them go.
Yeah.
Whereas in some of the previous films, it's like no, you were a bit of a arsehole.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're just waiting for the kills to happen. Whereas here, it's
Definitely
like
still one character in this film who was a complete asshole who I don't know about when you saw it, but certainly when I saw it, there was a massive cheer when they died.
okay, I'm intrigued to know which one you're on about.
Piano.
Piano. Why have I forgotten? Oh, yeah, the piano.
When he got hit by the piano, the whole room was like,
I'm trying to fit. Is that during the premonition?
yeah,
Because
it
I
is.
don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in theory, he actually survived that. So I'd
Oh
love to
yeah.
see the HBO Max spin-off where we find out what really happened to him.
My brain completely forgot about that little kid.
Child.
Yeah, that little kid. Because my brain immediately was going to the woman up against the window
Oh yeah, sorry, the
gets
second piano
squished about,
death, not the
and then
first
my
piano
brain
death.
immediately. I think my brain had deliberately like blocked him out of my head because I didn't like him.
Oh, I don't know anybody that did. Um,
Yeah.
I what something else I was going to say about the story. Um, I had seen a couple of spoilers online beforehand from
Mm,
things that had supposedly come from test screenings,
mm.
which was interesting because I went down a Reddit rabbit hole. Ooh, Reddit
Okay.
rabbit. That's an interesting
Reddit
one to try
rabbit.
and say. A Reddit rabbit hole where people were talking about what they thought had been done at test screenings and what they thought had then been reshot. And I don't know if
Yeah.
there were any reshoots on this film. Um,
Mm,
but the way the film actually ends was apparently, supposedly, not very well received at
mm.
test screenings, and a lot of people seem to think it had been reshot so that
It
spoiler
does look
alert,
like it's been
people
reshot.
would have survived. Supposedly,
Yeah.
there is a version where the final kill doesn't happen. Um,
That's not the first time the series has done that.
yeah,
There have been, I think, the first film and the third film had the endings completely changed
interesting.
because they did really bad at test screenings. Because I think for the first film, obviously we get that iconic one where that iconic ending shot where it's the
Yep,
three of them in Paris and then the
the
guy gets
sign.
hit by the sign. But I think in the original, Alex, I think I'm trying to remember now. Alex dies, and Clear and the guy from Dawson's Creek
Hmm.
um, are still alive, but Alex has killed himself to like So that's kind of a weird one. And then for the third film, they try and they all the same three characters survive, but then there's like an implication that Wendy's camera was haunted. And I think test audiences were like, this makes no sense at all. So they then just added the train sequence at the end to just fully
Oh,
do a
just
similar
make it,
thing that yeah. So there's a weird history with this franchise of like they had original plan for an ending and then that just completely
changed.
bombed. So they
They
just
did
did another
definitely
film.
say in an interview with Deadline, or at least what I read on Deadline,
Mm,
that after test screenings they added more gore.
that also doesn't
They said
surprise me.
audiences. They said the studio told them that audiences are much more bloodthirsty now than they used to be,
Mm,
and they thought they'd pushed it quite far in the original production, but test audiences were like, "No, push it harder," and they did.
yeah, I can. I guess I can kind of tell in a couple of sequences.
There's a couple of sequences which feel like they've got quite heavy CGI blood that may not
Mm,
have been there on set. So I don't know if they went back and reshot anything or if
if
they
they
just
edit it
in
digitally,
post added more
yeah.
gore.
Either wouldn't surprise me to be honest.
Yeah.
There's one in particular rattling around in my head where I'm like, actually, there's a couple rattling around in my head where they probably amped up the gore a little bit in
Mm.
post. Um, yeah, that honestly wouldn't surprise me to be honest.
So I think my only question mark, and I don't know if I don't think anything about it disappointed me whatsoever. I think I loved absolutely everything about it. But I do
Yeah.
wonder whether because they were trying to breathe a bit of new life into the franchise, I wonder
Mm.
if there was a different ending in there somewhere. But I also do like the irony of you tried so flipping hard that you thought you'd done it and you hadn't
Mm. Yeah, that
at the same
seems
time.
to be. I suppose the new ending makes sense because, like, that seems to be the tradition with,
You
I
th
think,
you
almost
might
every
think
single
that you've
film.
broken the curse and you haven't.
Yeah, I think every single film has followed that same template of, like, yeah, we're in the safe zone,
Yeah.
and then they're not, and then cut to credits and they're dead. Spoiler
Apart
alert for
from
the rest of
two,
them. Yeah.
although my understanding is that there's a deleted scene from three that suggested that the person who survived two actually died off screen, but that's not canon because it was never actually
Yeah.
put in a final edit.
Yeah, that's thrown out the window, I think now. I think this film's confirmed that. And I think also
Yes.
it would have, as much as like it fits the formula that these films have done where they all die at the end, I think because this film did a really good job of playing around with expectations because you think you know how a thing's going to go, and there's
Yep.
multiple points where this film, and that's one thing I loved about it is that like after the fifth one, they'd kind of rinsed the formula as dry as they could up to that point. Whereas this film does a really, really good job at a couple of points of going, right, you think A's going to happen, we're just going to throw B at you instead.
Yeah.
But A's still going to come, it's just not at this exact point.
I love the fact that one of the trailers is a complete fake out.
Yeah, and I really love that because when that scene was playing out in the film, I'm like, okay, I'm not as interested in this because I've seen
Yeah,
it
because I know
already.
what happens. I've seen it. This is in the
Yeah,
trailer. I know exactly. Why did you ever spoil this? And then you're like,
yeah.
oh,
And then that kind
you
of has
told me.
more implications on the family dynamic when you find out certain things
I
like
did call that. I called it.
yeah.
The second they weren't dead, I called it. I was like, oh, illegitimate child, not in the bloodline.
Mm. I also think I mean we'll get more into the kills in a minute, but like
Yeah,
I also think the
get
way
there.
that's executed as well is look like they're so busy focusing on Eric that what I think that's also where like the rather cheeky, tongue in cheek, not taking itself seriously sense of humour comes in.
Yeah.
Because that almost felt like a bit of a comedy sketch. Is like they're so
Yes.
focused on Eric that in the background, is it Julia
Yeah.
is getting thrown in the back of a garbage truck? I
Yeah.
honestly did chuckle when that happened because I was like, yeah, this is perfect. This is the perfect type of humour that the series kind of has and needs.
It's
Um,
almost like an analogy for what death is doing in the film because it's. I
mm,
love the fact that they've never made it a physical form. It's always been
yeah,
this just idea of death.
yeah.
So it's basically the film is toying with us as if the film is
Mm,
death.
mm. I think that was also so. I've since before watching this film and then after watching it, I've been on a bit of a similar to you. I've been on a bit of a Final Destination rabbit hole online. But apparently, I found out that while they were editing the first film or making the first film, the studio were concerned. I think all the producers and the writers wanted to still push it as like this. It's just this thing that happens, like they do
Yep.
in the film. But the studio was so worried that like they wanted to put like a shadowy figure in the back to show that there is like a face or a person to it,
No,
even
don't
though
do
it's
it.
still not an end, even though it's still an entity at the end of the day. But I think the creators still heavily pushed of like, no, it's just this series of things that happened. And I'm kind of glad that they've stuck with that because I
Yeah.
don't think it would work if there was just like a shadow in the back. It kind of
Yeah.
loses the credibility
Don't
of
do
it
it.
all.
Yeah. Keep it the idea of death. It's just the
Yeah,
universe trying to balance itself out.
yeah,
Okay. Kills.
kills.
Um, least favorite in this film.
I think. Are we just for the sake of this conversation? We're excluding the premonition. I'm guessing we're just focusing on like the kills as they happen, or are
Ooh,
we
good
including
question.
the? Because
Um,
I think I prefaced that in my list of like the
yeah.
premonitions don't count. I'm just focusing on like the individual deaths in the films.
Okay. Yeah. Go for it. Stick with it. I think all the ones in the premonition are great anyway.
Oh yeah, the premonition was so over the top, especially when that lady caught fire and just came around the corner screaming. That was they were like, okay, this is this is this is
Batshit.
perfect. Um,
And the finger getting skinned.
oh, don't. Oof. I think that's also another. Sorry to go on a
I wonder
bit of
whether that
tangent.
might have been your favorite, the way that the you think, my God, like after all of this,
Mm,
they have to make it, and then it's like, oh no,
yeah. I think that's not the double whammy I was on
okay.
about.
So the double
The,
whammy is going to be the end, I'm going to guess, but we'll
the
get there in a second. Least favorite, sorry, least favorite. Go on.
yeah, least favorite was probably the mum near the end where she gets the electric pole
Yeah,
just kind of smashes her because she's such an integral character and you know it's coming but I think just the very sudden way it happens it's like okay I was kind of expecting a bit more of a I think also because a lot of characters have already gone that way in
yeah,
previously in the film or in the premonition where they've just been like splattered to death. It just felt a little bit lackluster compared to some of the others.
yeah.
That's the only one really. All the
I would
others
agree
kind
with you
of
on that one. Yeah,
yeah
it has the least impact uh,
yeah uh,
compared to some of the others, which
yeah
are all quite impact heavy.
yeah. I was also gonna say Iris as well, but at the same time, that's the one that kicks things
Quite
into
a bit of impact
gear.
in that one.
Yeah, like that one. I guess in hindsight, I'm like, oh, that one didn't leave as much of an impact. But in the moment, I was like, oh Christ, okay, this is
Yeah,
what how we're just getting into it. So
yeah.
it's one of those ones I feel 50-50 about. I did
It's
like the shock
very,
value of it.
yeah, the shock value is great, but maybe its setup is a bit,
Underwhelming.
it's all a bit like, whoa, 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 okay, whoa,
Yeah,
like almost like Mousetrap, Tom and Jerry-esque.
love it.
There's something
Yeah,
very cartoony about it.
yeah.
In a, like, not a cartoon that you would show kids.
No, it's like this has always kind of confused me. It's like how the kids in The Simpsons always watch Itchy and Scratchy, despite it being the most like gruesome and gory
Yeah,
cartoon in the world.
exactly that. It's quite that's perfect. It's an itchy and scratchy death.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that happening now. Just
Okay.
put some mouse ears on Iris and then
Yeah.
straight through the straight through the head.
So favorite then.
My favorite.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I the reason I've worded it as a double whammy is because I've seen some people not viewing it as two in one, but because they happen so quick after the other,
Yeah,
I'm
that got
viewing
me.
it as a double whammy. And I think this is also where I kind of go into the characters is like they were my two favorites.
So I'm going to presume that you're not in a rush to have an MRI scan anytime soon.
Not really. Yeah, so my favorite death in the film is Eric, very quickly followed by Bobby. I
Yeah.
think because there was that, this is what I was kind of alluding to earlier, is because there is such an emphasis on those two being like a tight knit unit as brothers. The fact that Eric's already avoided death once,
Yeah.
and his death is brutal. Like his death is probably one of the most brutal in the entire series. That's again kind of what I was alluding to as like an all timer,
Yeah.
because it keeps going on and on and on, and you just think like surely it's over now, and then obviously Bobby goes for the EpiPen and then gets a
Yeah.
bloody was it a spring through his head,
Yeah.
which again, the suddenness of that one, I was like, Jesus Christ. And then it again just kept going of like showing the spring just corkscrewing his head. I'm like,
Yeah. There was not a
this
lot
is,
left of him by the end of that.
yeah, that it's one of the first deaths. I like, there are quite a lot of like horrific deaths in the series, but like that's one I can truly say is like borderline sadistic
Yes. It
with how
definitely is.
brutal they are for two of the most likable characters in the film.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, fuck's sake, he's back. um,
Current Sweat returns. Yeah.
yeah,
It
they're my
is.
two favorites. I
Yeah.
would say closely followed by the dad in the garden is probably my second.
I wish that wasn't in the trailer.
Yeah, I kind of wish if they'd shown like this some of the setup and then just stopped.
Not told us who had died. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a bit annoying that they showed it
Yeah.
in
I
the
suppose that
trailer.
they're somewhat thinking you don't know what's a premonition and what's an actual death, so you don't
Yeah,
know whether this is real or not when you're watching the trailer. Um,
yeah, that is true.
the MRI, I think that the only thing with the MRI was one of those piercings was very predictable.
True, yeah, yeah, that is
Minute,
true.
I think it was the minute the t-shirt went,
Yeah.
I was just like, well, he's got a Prince Albert. There's literally no
Yeah.
way they're not going to make that joke. I'm
Yeah.
amazed there wasn't. If there is an unrated edition, then I
Mm,
don't doubt for a second that you're not going to get to, and I never thought these would be words I would say on a podcast. You're going to get to see his penis explode.
no, yeah, oh God. I think the way I've tried to, because this is the thing, a lot of my friends, when I told them I was seeing this, they were like, "Oh, I'm not a massive fan of gore and horror and all that." Um, and the fact that Arthur, because again, they're not as they don't care about it as much, so like they
Yeah,
don't mind if I spoil it. So like trying to describe him is something that like only works visually. So trying to describe to them that like, oh yeah, someone gets sandwiched in an MRI machine is very hard to like
visualized to someone.
verbally explain. It's
Yeah,
just like, oh yeah, he's like this, and then goes like that. It's just, I don't know. I just love how sadistic it is. Plus, it also, and I again, this is something I found out afterwards. Um, is that I guess this is something that the series is very good at doing as a whole. Is kind of playing on very mundane things as a fear you didn't know you had.
yeah,
I think a lot. I've heard so many people say this in their reviews now. Is that like they were terrified to drive behind a log truck for
yeah.
years after watching Final Destination 2. I found out that apparently people have died from similar things in an MRI room because of like I think there was a kid in an MRI machine and there was an oxygen tank off to the side of the room. The magnet pulled it in and then crushed the kid's head, and I'm like, oh, that's a real thing that can happen. Okay, now I'm even more I'm even more terrified. I think there's even another instance where like a security guard went to investigate an MRI machine. The the magnet pulled his gun towards the machine, set the gun off, and shot him in like the stomach. And I'm like, these aren't Final Destination things. This is actual real life.
Death is
Again, just
coming.
kind of, yeah, just kind of proves that like they're very good at taking things that shows that they did their research. Like these
Yeah,
things
true.
actually can kill you if you really like
Yeah, I'm not
put.
sure it can quite turn up to
No,
not so
no.
easily to the level that it does in the film. Um,
Yeah, I think that's one thing this series is very good at is going like, yeah, the thing can kill you, but like this is the most extreme version of that, probably
yeah,
to crank the fear out of it.
yeah. Uh, so I think honorable mention goes to poor Julia dropping
Yeah,
in the back of the frame into a garbage truck that crushes her head.
yeah, yeah. That one was again. That one was brutal. I think up to this point, I think the third film had the most brutal kills because it was just like we don't care about these characters. We're just gonna give them the most
Interesting. That'll
horrific.
be my what I'll be watching that this weekend.
I like it purely just for the fact that like also it's got the most sadistic match cut in cinematic history.
Oh, this is the Mary Elizabeth Winstead one.
Yeah. Also, like I love Mary Elizabeth Winstead, so like I have a bit of bias towards that film as well. Um, but yeah, a lot of the
Yeah.
deaths in this film were very reminiscent of that third one, where it's just like, yeah, we don't care if you like this character or not. They're gonna get the worst treatment in the world when they die. Um, and I oh god, this sounds horrible to say on record, but like I kind of love that sadisticness when the series really goes for like, yeah, we don't care if you like this character or not. We're just gonna give them the worst, most unforgivingly brutal death in the world.
Yeah, why not?
Um,
That's why these
and
films exist.
yeah, and I like the fact that this one tapped into that. The garbage one is pretty. Is that and the I think that and the garden one are pretty on par in terms of how just brutal they are.
Yeah. I like how the garden really messes with you with all the different
Mm,
ways it could happen to different people. There's a lot of fake outs. There's a lot of good stuff that happens in that scene. I thought it was a really well
mm,
constructed sequence.
yeah, definitely.
Um, Final thought. Actually, well, I guess part of wrapping up on Final Destination Bloodlines, Tony Todd.
Yeah,
So it does seem like his final scene is uh not scripted.
yeah,
Whether we'll ever find out for real whether that is true or not, I don't know. But if he was improving,
mm.
wow,
I
because
think
it's very clear to see that he is not a well man when they shot
no,
this.
yeah,
Um, that is unfortunately the look of a man who is on active cancer treatment and it's not
mm,
going well. Um,
no,
so those final words are just
yeah, yeah. I think the director's actually confirmed in an interview is like for that last line he says before he goes out the door.
yeah.
Everything up to that point was like was fairly scripted, but they just gave him free rein for that last line just because they knew they didn't have much time with him. And was I can't remember the direction they
Oh
gave
yeah.
him.
Okay. So speaking to Deadline, they said we all knew that he was quite obvious. He was obviously quite ill. It was pretty clear that this was going to be the last role he would play in a movie, and the fact it was one of the final destination movies made it far more poignant. They, who is it that's saying this? This is producer Craig Perry talking to Deadline.
Mm,
Said that the directors took a risk when shooting his scene, deciding to let him speak from the heart instead of from the script.
mm,
Our directors, they made a very shrewd decision to take the last couple of lines that were scripted and said, Tony, just say what you would want to say to the fans. What would you like to impart on them in this moment? So
mm.
everything that makes the scene so emotional is authentic because that was just Tony talking through the camera to fans. Um,
It does hit hard when you in the film when it
so he
happens.
says, yeah, for anybody that's not seen it, I'll tell you what he says. He says, I intend to enjoy the time that I have left, and I suggest you do the same. Life is precious. Enjoy every single second. You never know when. Good luck.
Mm.
It's just like heavy. It's heavy
Yeah,
stuff.
very heavy, especially because he's been with the series since the start. I
Yeah.
don't think he's in.
He's in he's in one and two, and
He's
then he
not in 3 and 4.
there's a voice somewhere. Apparently he played a voice somewhere, um, in one of the others. So there's
Yeah.
somewhere where you don't see him but you hear him, and then obviously back for this one.
Mm. Yeah. No, it does work very well.
I'm glad they didn't do anything to him on screen as well, because in
Yeah.
theory he I don't know what they do, whether they ever mention that character ever again or whether they just leave it out. He's just never found
Mm.
again. I kind
Yeah.
of think they almost should leave it as it is. I think it's kind of perfect.
Yeah, I think also because they finally give his character like a reason for knowing what he does and a
Yes,
bit
which
of
again we kind
purpose.
of guessed. Sort of,
Yeah.
Matt and I leant into each other at the screening, and we were like, "I think I know who that is."
Yeah. I
But it didn't
I
matter that it was sort of predictable. It was like Perfect.
Yeah, I actually quite sometimes when a series has been going on for so long and they add that bit of information in, sometimes it can feel a bit pointless. Whereas here,
Yeah.
it feels rather poignant considering the
Yeah.
themes of the film and the fact that this feels like a full circle moment
Yeah.
for the franchise as a whole, especially because it's been away for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it really worked. I kind of clocked it very like not very early on, but like about halfway through the film. I'm like, that's probably a young Tony Todd.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it worked really well. It could have gone like in a completely different direction, but I like the fact that they did what they did. He
Yeah.
served his purpose like he has done in the previous films, and just kind of disappeared. And if they do a seventh one, which they probably will, I hope they don't like find an actor to replace him because I think
I
that
don't think they
character just
will. I
should.
think they will leave that there,
Yeah,
particularly if the same directors come back.
yeah. Plus, they've done Final Destination films before without Tony Todd's character,
Yeah.
so it is doable.
Yeah.
He gives a bit of personality to the proceedings, but it has worked in the past. They can do a seventh one without him.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's incredibly poignant. The note they leave it on.
Yeah. So I think the only other thing I have to say is I really enjoyed this film. I loved it.
Yeah.
I've almost have no notes on this film really.
Mm,
It looked great in IMAX, so I highly recommend if you get a chance to do go and try and see it on an IMAX screen, but
mm,
definitely see it in the cinema because it looks great.
yeah. I really enjoyed it. It's probably my if I was to do a ranking, it would probably be my second favorite. I
Mm.
think.
Yeah, I think that's where it's landed in mine of the three that I have seen.
I mean, the
I can imagine
original.
that's where it would end up. It's definitely a high point for the franchise.
Yeah, the original's still my favorite, just because I think it nails that premise right out the gate,
Yeah.
and kind of does it as best as it could. And the other films kind of put other elements in. But I liked a lot of what this film did. And I if they I It's one of the rare times where like this is the seventh no this is the sixth installment in a franchise, and I would happily see like a seventh, an eighth, a
Yeah.
ninth, because I feel like there's still so much untapped potential
Yeah.
for where they could go with this franchise. And I'm just happy to see it back after so long.
What better way to end it? So Final
Yeah.
Destination Bloodlines in cinemas now. Do go and watch it and let us know what you thought. Which leads us on to something very, very different. Very different. Um, which I was just like, oh, I'm so glad somebody else has watched this. Like the whole thing, because so I can
Mm,
talk to someone about it. And it gave me an opportunity to make sure it got into a podcast episode because I don't think I've talked about any Apple TV shows on here before, apart from probably glossing a bit over the morning show, which I absolutely adore.
mm,
But I was like, yes, I have someone I can talk to about MurderBot, which is a brand new Apple TV show which stars and is executive produced by Alexander Skarsgård. The first two episodes are available to stream globally now, and new episodes stream every Friday through July the 11th, which should be a very important day to you because July the 11th is also this day. Just to bring him back in a non-creepy fashion. The series also stars David Dastmalchian. Who else have we got? We've got Noma Dumezweni, who is a wonderful British actress, whose name I've probably just done a really awful job with, and I'll feel terrible about it. You've got Sabrina Wu, Akshay Khanna. I'm reading this on my IMDb, and we know our IMDb cast list about somebody's probably in one episode, and I've said their name. Tamara Podemski, Tatiana Jones. That was a fun one.
mm,
Jennifer Sendola. Again, she's a bystander in two episodes, so I'm
mm,
scraping. You've also got John Cho, Clark Gregg,
mm,
Jack McBrayer, who is hilarious, and I love seeing him in anything.
mm.
DeWanda Wise. So it's an interesting cast, and
Yeah.
obviously we'll probably talk about how John Cho, Clark Gregg, and the others come into it because they come into it in a very very fun way.
Mm,
But most of this show hinges on Alexander Skarsgård. Synopsis wise, again, I'm going with the IMDb one, which I'm not sure is great, but a security android struggles with emotions and free will while balancing dangerous missions and desire for isolation, evading detection of its self-hacking as it finds its place.
mm.
I always find IMDb synopses to be slightly weird. I don't really think they're official. I feel like
No.
it's some sort of AI generated, this is what I think this show is about.
Yeah, I think when I wrote my review for it for Filmhounds, I just used the synopsis they gave, which Apple gave,
What's
which is a little bit more
yeah. So based on Martha Wells' best-selling Hugo and Nebula award-winning book series, The MurderBot Diaries, which I've not read, the
me
series
neither.
is a sci-fi thriller slash comedy about a self-hacking security construct who is horrified by human emotion yet drawn to its vulnerable clients. Played by Alexander Skarsgård, Murderbot must hide its free will and complete a dangerous assignment when all it really wants is to be left alone to watch futuristic soap operas and figure out its place in the universe. That's
Yeah,
better.
that's a much better summary of the show. I'm kind of glad I went with that instead of the IMDb one
Yeah.
because it's a better realization of what the show's
Yeah.
going for.
So this is a 10 episode show. Both Aaron and I have seen all 10 episodes. We will go in a little bit into spoilers on the first two.
Mm,
We don't want to spoil anything else because it's a fun kind of ride through to where the show ends up.
yeah.
And as I said, that's going to be going on till July the 11th. I One thing that I wanted to say was I feel like this works better when you can watch it at your pace. So you can
Mm,
binge a couple if you want to binge a couple and then maybe take a break.
yeah. Yeah,
I don't know that this works weekly.
I'm not sure because it's probably similarly to you. I got all the screeners given it in one
Yep.
go, and because each episode is like 20, 30
Oh
minutes.
yeah, it is a 30 minute, by the way. This isn't an hour.
Yeah,
This is a 30 minute.
I that surprised me because I think
Mm.
when I saw the original trailer, I was like, surely this has got to be like prestige drama, hour long sort of thing. Each episode's 30 minutes, maybe just under. I got
It's kind of
through a lot.
workplace comedy in a way.
Yeah, I got through a lot of the episodes a lot quicker than I was expecting,
Yep.
which is why I sometimes prefer watching comedies and I guess animes to an extent, is because those short run times give you
Yeah.
can fit more in,
Yeah.
rather than dragging out like an hour or an hour and a half long episode just for one episode.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's very easy to watch in a bingeable format. As someone who's seen the whole thing, I would recommend maybe leaving it a few weeks and then watching them in batches
Yeah.
rather
Watch a
than,
few. Don't maybe let it catch up to the point where you've got to wait a week. Maybe do
yeah,
kind of like two at a time.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
probably the
because
best way to do it.
like I said to you, I started it.
Mm,
I wasn't quite hooked on the first one, but
mm,
I liked it. The second one hooked me a bit more, and by the end of the third one, I was hooked. And then I took a ridiculous break where I didn't watch any for a few weeks, and then I ended up binging the remaining seven episodes
mm,
like the day before the reviewing button so that I could get my review written. And I was like, why did I not watch this better or earlier? Because I really.
mm. Yeah,
So let's do the same thing again. Let's start with like story.
yeah,
Um, I will say it's not an action-packed show where there's like a massive hook every single episode.
yeah,
Which is why I think it works better in a binge because it is one overarching story, so you are seeing bits of it in each episode.
yeah.
It's not it's not the sounds like I'm being critical. I'm not saying this in a critical way. It's not the
Mm.
busiest show. It's
No,
quite
I
sparse.
know what you mean when you say that. Yeah, it's very straightforward to the point,
Yeah.
and it's focused on the thing it's trying to do rather than I don't know. Compare it to like Andor, which recently finished. That's a lot of different storylines and
Yeah.
elements all going on every
Yeah, this
three
isn't sort
episodes.
of complex. There's no real complex subplots. It's really
Yeah,
character focused, character driven, and
yeah,
that character is the Murderbot. It's Skarsgård. Everyone else
mm,
is supplementary to him and is facilitating his journey. So
yeah,
it's really all about his experience, how he experiences the situation that they're in,
mm,
rather than okay, in this episode, Murderbot's going to go here and he's going to do this. It's more
mm,
like okay, this is the next bit of progression in his journey.
yeah. That is
And
probably
it's
the best
very
way to put it.
singular location as well.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to be so self-contained. I was
Hmm.
expecting a bit more. Again, also someone who hasn't read the books,
Yeah.
I don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
I think the tone threw me off a little bit to begin with, but again, didn't know what I was getting myself in for.
No, I mean, I requested those screeners based off the one image of him with the mask because I thought the
Mm,
design, I love the
mm.
design of his suit to the point where I was like, this looks awesome.
Yeah,
Between that title and the design of his costume, I was like, just sign me up.
yeah, and you think with a title like Murderbot, it would go in a certain way, but then
Surprising lack of murder to a
yeah,
degree.
and then when you actually watch the thing, it's actually not light-hearted, but like it's got a bit more. It's more got comedic sensibilities than like the gritty sci-fi drama that
Yeah.
again those promo images kind of set up.
Yep, definitely. And I don't. I mean, this is pro Alexander is probably the Skarsgård whose back catalogue I know the least,
Yeah, I
at least
was
off the top
trying
of
to
my
think.
head. Um,
Yeah.
so I don't feel like I'm used to seeing in a comedy role. And although it's not outright comedy,
Mm,
it's very sort of black comedy, dark comedy. Um, and he does it so
yeah.
well.
I've not seen. I think similarly to you, I've not seen him in a lot of the stuff I've seen him in has been like The Northman or
Yep.
something along those lines that's a bit more darker and grittier. He has been in some dark comedies before. I think there was one, God, back in like 2016 that I wanted to watch but never got around to, called War on Everyone, which is directed by the brother of Martin McDonagh, who
I
did
forgot you
In
did Godzilla
Bruges.
versus Kong.
Yeah, there is the other thing as well. There was parts of his performance here that reminded me of that awful Netflix film Mute,
Oh,
by Duncan
okay.
Jones.
Hmm.
Yeah, which I remember not liking when I watched it. But there are, in a good way, there are elements of that performance here, and I do think he is. Yeah, I know he's the main character of this show, but he is the best thing about this show.
Yeah.
He's got such a dry
Oh, it's so
sense
dry.
of humor, and it
Yeah.
just works so much, so well at
Yep.
multiple different points. Especially like there's almost something a bit petty and childish about it, where it's just like they're gonna get themselves killed. I'm just gonna watch my soap opera.
Yeah.
There's just that recurring thing of like I
He
don't care what
literally
they're
does
doing.
not care.
Yeah, and I
But at the
kind of
same
love that.
time, he kind of does.
Yeah, and I
You
think I
feel the
liked.
spark of humanity in him,
Yeah,
which
I
is kind of
really.
growing throughout the season. But then it
Yeah,
just constantly surprises you when he's actually like, oh, I can't be asked.
yeah, that was the hook, the thing that really hooked me. Because again, similarly to you, in that first episode, I was like, okay, where's this going?
Yeah.
But when it started showing those human elements of like, I really don't care about these people, but I sort of do, so I guess I've got to save them. That whole like conflict and him trying to hide his not emotions, his free will, I suppose.
Yeah.
That whole aspect really was like the thing that, and also the dry sense of humor that came with it, because I love that in any film. Just was like the thing that really that was like, okay, this is what I'm here for. Everything else is just kind of extra, and the extra stuff ends up being really good as well.
Yeah, I think to a degree it kind of defies description.
Yeah,
It's
it's
very
quite.
unique in that respect. There's not I can't compare it to anything else at all.
Yeah, that's I will be honest. It made my writing my review quite hard because I'm like I can describe the things that worked and what didn't, but at the
Yeah.
same time I'm like there's nothing to compare this to. I guess
Yeah.
the sci-fi elements can be compared to insert sci-fi show B or whatever,
Yeah.
but yeah, tonally, and I mean this in a good way. It's a little bit all over the place, but I kind of like that.
Yeah.
It's singular in its vision, but like it's kind of borrowing from a load of different things. But
Yeah.
I appreciate that because it's very focused with what it's trying to do.
Yeah. And I think moving into kind of casting characters
Mm,
quite naturally, because he is, like we were just saying, he's such a focus and he's so great in the role. I do feel like everyone is perfectly cast.
mm,
So Noma as Mensa, the leader of the group that
mm.
MurderBot is kind of bought by and is looking after, she has so much gravitas in that
Yeah.
role. She's just amazing. Although, again, I don't know what else particularly I've seen her in, but she is
No.
amazing. I couldn't call you anything out off the top of my head. So she's in the 2023 Little Mermaid. She's in Mary Poppins Returns. She's been in Only Murders in the Building for 2 episodes.
Yeah.
She's also in Doctor Who as a voice, in
Mm,
the 10th Doctor Adventures, Pose, Normal People. Um, what else has she been in? Black Earth Rising, Casualty. So I think I've seen her in a lot of TV stuff in the UK. So like Midsummer
mm,
Murders, she's in. She was in Doctor Who for 2 episodes. Uh, can't quite t in 2008, 2009 that was. Um, she's also been in EastEnders, New
mm.
Tricks, so many like British staples. She's been in Shameless. Holby City, The Bill, Silent Witness. She's proper British TV like institution. She's
Yeah,
just like I love her. I love
yeah.
her, which is again why I said to you like I felt so heartbroken for her in the finale.
Yeah, I mean we obviously can't go into too much detail on that, but there is a lovely back and forth between her and Murderbot throughout the series
Yeah.
that just becomes quite endearing after a certain point.
It's
Again,
not,
not
and
going in, yeah.
it's not like
Mother,
like it's not like
yeah.
parent-child. It's not even sibling. It's something else, but it's again, it's so unique to this show.
Yeah, it's something I've not really seen before, but it's just
Mm.
executed in like a very. It's weird to describe it. It's not. I've not seen it before, but it's handled in a very familiar way that makes it work.
Yeah.
I know what I mean when I say that, but again, it just sort of works. And yeah, she does a very good job of kind of being adding of that vulnerability to that character as well.
She has
Because
another good dry wit as well, which I think also
yeah,
helps.
yeah,
Um,
there's a few points where she shut downs David Desmalkian's character, and it's just kind of perfect because
yeah.
she almost kind of says what Murderbot thinks at
Yes.
times,
Which is
and
probably
it's
why
just
he kind of identifies and makes friends with her, I guess, more than anybody else, because there's
yeah,
some similarities there. David
yeah,
Dastmalchian, also, I mean, again, I don't think there's anything I've ever seen him in that I don't like him in. Um,
yeah. I love
what a
him so
brilliant
much.
actor in everything that he is in.
Mm,
Um, Late Night with the Devil last year,
yeah,
incredible, all the way back to being in the back of an ambulance in The Dark Knight
yeah,
as a crazy person with no name. Um, just a brilliant, brilliant character actor and
yeah.
so well cast. Same with Sabrina Wu, brilliantly cast. All
Mm-hmm.
like all of the people on that science exhibition ah
Yep. Expedition.
expedition.
There
Thank you
we go.
very much. All of the people on that scientific expedition so well cast,
Yeah,
so well cast.
yeah. There's a couple of characters to begin with where you're not sure what way they're going to go, and they could get annoying very quickly. But
Yeah,
again, there is an endearing element to almost all of them. Even David Desmalkian's character, where like he's
it's kind of a bit of an antagonist, really, but
yeah, he starts off as the antagonist, but even then, again, not going into any
spoiler alert!
detail, but
Spoiler alert!
going later into the series, there he does show that vulnerability. Again, I won't say how or why, but
There's growth,
that
isn't there?
yeah, there's a lot of growth, not just for these two characters, but almost the
Everyone really.
entire group.
Yeah, but never in a way that feels like it's then taking away from Murderbot.
Mm,
It's
yeah,
all in service of the plot.
yeah, I think that's one thing that really surprised me, and is probably one of my favorite elements of the show is just how much likability and we've kind of summed it up here is how much depth there is to all of these characters. It's
Yeah,
not just a singular one that you care more about than the others. There is a sense of like community and
yeah,
camaraderie and likability between all of them. Um, all whilst, again, like you said, in service of Murderbot as the main character,
yeah,
and it's all coming from his point of view. He warms to them as the series goes on,
yeah,
and you really do feel that throughout the
yeah.
series.
To the point where when you get to the end of the series, and I'm not going to spoil anything that actually happens at the end,
Yeah,
I was just like, this has to have another season.
yeah. I genuinely wanted to see more by the time this
Yep.
finished.
Yep.
Um, I'm happy to see a second season because I think they left it on such a lovely note.
Yeah.
Um, but
And an
yeah,
unexpected one as well, I think, which is
mm,
also great because I feel like part of the finale points you in a certain direction, and then the final few minutes twist it off in a different direction. Um, that I'm sure some people will see coming, but especially if you've read the
mm,
books, because I'm sure it probably follows and tracks as to what he does in the books.
yeah.
But was unexpected for me, but unexpected
Mm.
in a way that is wonderful for him and sad for other people, and it's just
It,
really well written.
yeah, I found it to be unexpected as well, but I was like, no, this kind of has to happen. I can't
Yeah,
really see it going any other way. It I can't really say anymore, but like, yeah, it felt cathartic to an extent, is the best way I can put it.
yeah.
Painful but cathartic at the same time.
And then you have this wonderful guest cast in John Cho, Jack McBrayer,
Yep.
DeWanda Wise, etc., Clark Gregg, who are in the soap opera that MurderBot is addicted to, which is just genius. It's
Yeah.
obviously very heavily influenced by kind of TOS era Star Trek and
Mm,
sort of 60s American sci-fi shows, but it's
mm.
so funny.
Yeah, I was expecting them to kind of play up, like, not necessarily with the performances. They're all hamming it up as
Yeah,
much as they can, and I love that. I think Jack McBride is made for that sort of thing. I mean, you just take one look at his smile, and it's like, yeah, fair enough.
yeah.
But I kind of thought, I suppose it's one minor critique, is that, like, I thought they'd lean more to that in, like, the visual side of it, because
Mm.
it looks very polished, yet they're all hamming it up as if it's like a show from the 60s
Yeah,
or
it could have been a bit more
70s.
cardboard, couldn't it, on the set?
Yeah, I think that's like my one. I suppose you have to kind of think of it in the way of like this is a show that's made in the future, so it's not
Yeah.
going to have that sort of cardboard DIY sort of look to it. So I suppose it's forgiven in that sense. But I had I wish I suppose that's one thing. I kind of wish I'd seen a bit more of it because it just looks like so much fun, and
Yeah.
I can tell that they had a blast probably filming those scenes because they look
Yeah.
like they're just all playing up to it. It I suppose for anyone who's like wants to compare it to something, it's a little bit like the USS Callister stuff in Black Mirror
That's true. Yeah,
without
that does
that
have that
darker
kind of
element
aspect
to
to it.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, without the darker stuff. It's the best way I can put it.
And well, touching on the set design for that section, then
Mm.
production wise, this is just typical Apple. So it's
Oh
like
yeah, pristine.
absolutely like every single frame of this is just incredible. And
Yeah.
actually, it's not probably not as high budget as you might think when we say it's a sci-fi show about a robot.
Mm.
Um, but my God, when they bring out alien creatures, they look
Mm.
incredible.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I've always. It's not me going on a side tangent gushing about Apple TV, but that's one thing I've always loved about them, even before I had a subscription, is they've always felt like a streamer that kind of views more quality over quantity. Like
Yes.
they don't have many films and many shows, but the ones they do have, 9 out of 10 times are pretty good, and they put all the money goes on the screen.
It's very rare that a
Um,
show for their money lasts a season.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. And I from the Apple shows I have seen,
Yeah.
um, you can tell whether it be this or Ted Lasso or like the
Yeah.
bits of Masters of the Air that I've seen.
Yeah.
I haven't had an Apple TV subscription for long, but it shows from the stuff that they've made is that like they put their money where their mouth is. And this is just another really good example of that from the production, the cast, the
Yeah,
effects.
I need to watch Severance. Silo, great show.
Mm.
Prime Target, brilliant show. The
Even their
more,
films have got slightly better. Like I
yeah,
seem to be one of the only people that really loved The Gorge earlier
I need to
this
watch
year.
that.
Yeah, it again. You watch it and you kind of go, this very easily could have been in cinemas because
Yeah,
the quality of it, story wise, performance wise, visually, is that good.
yeah. Um, I don't think there's much else to say because it's so, like we said, kind of defies description. Um, I
Yeah.
did, so I reviewed this for the website. I gave it 4 stars.
Same.
Um, and I said, though it takes a couple of episodes to win over the audience, MurderBot is an engaging series with a heady mix of comedy, action, and humanity. Its message of embracing our flaws and accepting those of the people around us is timeless and effortlessly brought to life by the series' inspired casting choices.
Yeah. I mean, my review, which again I did it for Film Hounds, and I gave it again 4 stars. I'm trying to think. How did I sum it up? I'm trying. I'm not trying to copy you, but I'm trying to think what I said.
No, no, go for it.
Murderbot is a brilliant piece of comedic sci-fi storytelling that intrigues as much as it entertains. It's a show that feels confident in its execution, and this is only reinforced by a fantastic cast who are all working at the top of their game, especially Skarsgård, who is at his funniest here. It doesn't disappoint and consistently delivers from start to finish. This is about to become a lot of people's new favorite TV show.
There are only so many adjectives in the world who are bound to overlap at some point.
Oh yeah, I think I abused thesaurus.com
Yeah.
for that review.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you can watch the first 2 episodes of Motorbot on Apple TV now, and new episodes stream every Friday
yep,
until July the 11th,
and
otherwise
we
known as.
yep. The
Superman
Day
Day.
of Superman. And we can't stress enough, if you're not clicking with the first couple of episodes, just give it
Yeah,
time.
keep stick with it. Stick with
Yeah,
it.
just give
Please
it
stick with it
time.
because it's so worth it.
Yeah.
Um, I'm going to stick with Apple TV. So before we kind of wrap up, I wanted to talk about some stuff that's coming up because
Yep.
now that I'm back behind a microphone and I'm able to string most of a sentence together, I feel like we will try and get this up and running again.
Yep.
I'm seeing Fountain of Youth on Wednesday, which is Apple TV. So this is
Hmm.
Apple TV. John Krasinski does Indiana Jones
Yep.
slash National Treasure. And I think it's going to be like a perfect Sunday afternoon family film. I know I'm seeing it on a Wednesday night.
Yep.
But again, the production values just look insane.
Yeah, we have a friend of ours called Charlie who keeps summing it up as like a fake film that doesn't look like it exists. And every time I see the poster for this film, I just imagine it as one of the trailers that plays in front of Tropic Thunder. So I won't be convinced this is a real film until I see
I've
it
seen it. Yeah. I'm
when
really
it
looking forward
comes
to
out on
it.
Friday. Because
They're
it
having
comes
a
out on
proper
Friday,
screening for
doesn't
it.
it?
So
Yeah, comes out properly Friday, doesn't it?
21st. Yeah.
Yeah, that's bloody
Oh no,
hell.
wait, that's when I'm seeing it. Friday is when it's out. Yes.
Yeah, cool, right.
I'm so sorry.
It's alright.
I was going to say I shouldn't be allowed out of the house, but I'm in the house. Um, but there is lots coming up that there is to be excited about. So
Yep.
this week you have Lilo and Stitch. Oh,
Hmm.
this is the Hannah Waddingham double whammy.
Yep.
This is the Wadders whammy. So she's in Lilo and Stitch, which is out this week.
Yep.
From the reactions that I've seen and people I've spoken to who've seen it, everyone absolutely adores it. And I'm talking about people who adored the original.
Mm.
I haven't seen the animated one. I don't know it. I've never seen it.
I'm shocked. I'm so shocked. I
Yep.
I'm not going to go on a tirade like around
Right,
about it.
okay. This is where I throw in my justification.
Okay, go on.
So Lilo and Stitch is out this week, and also Mission Impossible, both of which have Hannah Waddingham in.
Yeah.
The original Lilo and Stitch was 2002, so I was 17 and I was 16, 17. So I think I was just a little bit, I don't know, I think I was probably too cool for school and was just like, I'm not going to see a kid's film.
How old would I have been? I would have been like 3 or 4, I think. I just know that like there were a handful of Disney films that I watched to death on VHS. It was that, Robin Hood, The Aristocats, and Emperor's New Groove. And those four were on. He's back. Those
You
three
deserve
plus.
that one for making me feel old.
I'm sorry. I can't help how old I am. Good God. Yeah, those three plus Lilo and Stitch. I watched to death as a
Yeah.
kid, and I still love all four of them to this day. Although that being said, I have not watched Lilo and Stitch in like an eternity, so I'm well overdue a rewatch.
That's
Um,
me with like Aladdin,
yeah,
The Little Mermaid, and The Rescuers. But you know, The Rescuers came out in 1977, which is before I was born.
mm.
Just going to point that out.
I did say a thing. Okay.
So yeah, you've got that. You've got Mission Impossible, which I have
Yeah.
seen. I'm not going to say anything because you haven't seen it yet.
No, I'm looking forward to seeing
I
it,
need to finish
despite
my
what
review
people have
because that's out
said.
on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a fun one. It is a fun one. The review embargo is lifted, so I could talk about it at length, but I'm not going to because I don't want to spoil it, and I'd like to talk
Mm.
about it when you've seen it.
Yeah.
Um, Not my favorite in the franchise. By no means is it their worst. Uh,
No.
Absolutely do go see it at the cinema and do go see it on an IMAX screen because again, it's
Mm.
beautiful.
That is the one general thing I've heard. Almost everyone that came out of that screening last week, I think, have said the similar to the same thing, which has me a bit worried. But at the same
Middling,
time,
but looks beautiful.
yeah, which has me sort of worried. But at the same time, it's Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
I'm going to be excited to see it regardless.
So I think when you see
So
it, let's
yeah,
circle. Maybe like next episode will probably be Mission Impossible. I think we should probably
mm,
just sit down and let's just like hash it out because
yeah,
there's a lot to talk about with that film. We've just been confirmed for the junket for How to Train Your Dragon, another franchise I've never seen a film of. I really
me
need to
neither.
reply because I've been invited to see it. James is going to be interviewing director Dean DeBlois. I don't know how you say it.
Dim de Blur, I
DeBleur,
think.
DeBlois.
It's like blue but spelt weirdly. So I just
Bleu.
yeah, Dim de Blue.
Who is directing this live action version, but is also the director of the original How to Train Your Dragon as well. So Dean is the oracle of all things How to Train Your Dragon. So James is going to be sitting down with him. He's seeing the film this week, and then I think he's interviewing him beginning of the week after. So we should have it ready to go for before the film comes out to talk all about that. And this weekend is MCM Comic Con in London, which I'm kind of looking forward to because I've not been to one for a little while.
Mm.
The last one. unfortunately fell in the weekend of one of those things I was talking about at the beginning of this podcast.
Mm,
Um, so I've not been to one for a little while. So I'm quite looking forward to it. It's going to be nice to see a few people, get out, talk to people who were there. So if
mm.
you happen to be at MCM at London's XL this weekend, I'm going to be there on Friday and I think Saturday rather than Sunday. I'm not sure. I think I might front load my weekend and then have a relaxing Sunday. Um, but we've been talking a lot about this. You've not been to one, have you?
Yeah, the only Comic Con I've been to, I'm not counting the local one in Eastbourne because that was atrocious. Is the London Film and Comic
Comic
Con,
Con.
which
Yep.
happens at the Olympia,
Yeah.
and that was back in like 2016, so I don't really remember much about it. Um,
Because you were five.
hang on. But I do want to do MCM properly because I know it is like the big one that happens in London. So I do want to do it
Yeah.
at some. It happens in October, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's May
Yeah.
and October.
I do want to do that one at some point. And there's a annoyingly, I've been trying to look at like other big like conventions that are happening in London throughout the year, and annoyingly, every one that comes up in the next few months,
Lands
something
kind
else
of
is
doing something.
yeah. So like for example, MCM this weekend. I'm annoyingly having to work the Saturday, which is the day
Uh,
I would have probably gone up,
yeah.
and then I'll probably be so knackered from filming
You
from
wouldn't
the
do
Saturday
Sunday.
that I wouldn't do the Sunday.
Yeah.
And then for the love of fantasy, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. Something else is I'm doing something else that same day up in London, so I guess that's out of the picture. I can't catch a break.
There is always San Diego Comic Con Malaga.
That is true. Although you were telling me that like the ticket system on that was a bit
Ticket
cursed.
system was difficult.
Yeah.
Tickets have now sold out, I think, apart from the Thursday.
Mm,
For anybody that's not aware, this is the first time that that Comic Con, the company that runs San Diego Comic Con, aka
mm.
Mecca, has licensed an
The
event.
big one.
The big one. The Glastonbury of has licensed an event outside the US. So they also own WonderCon, which happens in Anaheim in March-ish time.
Mm,
But San Diego is there, obviously, that's the biggest one in the world. And this is the first time they've licensed an event outside the US and it's happening in September. Um, so I don't know if we're going to be there yet or not. I've been talking to them about press accreditation today. So we might be there. I don't know. I
fingers
kind of like
crossed.
to cover it. I kind of like to cover the first one ever and see what it's
Mm.
like.
I don't know why, and this isn't me. I think it's purely because of the location. I can see this kind of the intentions there, but it could fall on its face a little bit.
We'll see. Yeah, it's difficult,
Yeah,
isn't it? Because when you're in San Diego, you are a couple of hours by train away from LA,
yeah.
aka Hollywood. So it's easy to drag your whole A-listers in. I
Mm.
don't know if you catch those kinds of people to
In
come to
Malaga.
Spain,
Yeah.
um, which is what I'm interested by because it's a 4-day event as well. So
Mm.
like MCM, most UK ones are 2 days, Saturday, Sunday. MCM manages to stretch it to 3 days, be Friday, Saturday,
Mm.
Sunday. San Diego is Wednesday night, preview night, then all day Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And this is doing the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So they must think that they can pull something. I mean,
Mm.
the Avengers cast filming in London.
Yeah, that is
Get them
true.
over.
Yeah.
September's an odd time of year as well because there's not a lot of films around that time. Even stuff like The Conjuring has already come out in September.
I
So
suppose they could
you're
build
closer to
up.
October, November, and really trying to hype, like early hype for Christmas stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say they probably would hype up more of the like November-y,
Yeah,
Christmassy releases. Like the only ones that are popping into my head are like Wicked and maybe Avatar.
yeah, exactly. So it's going to be
Yeah,
interesting to see what they catch to be there. Um,
yeah.
but anyway, if you're going to be at MCM Comic Con this weekend in London, come and say hello because I will be there. Um, and it'd be nice to see people. We've done it. We've
Yeah,
survived a podcast. I've
yeah,
done it.
yeah. We did it.
I've done it, and it's lasted about an hour longer than I planned.
That's fine. That's all good.
So thank you everyone for tuning in. As we've already kind of covered our own social media, but if you want to follow the website as well, we're on all major platforms
Mm,
at Get Your Comic On, apart from Twitter, where it's at Get Your Comic On One. If you want to keep up to date with all the latest news and all of the other bits and pieces that are going on and reviews and Aaron's wonderful listicles of how people die in movies,
yeah.
then it's getyourcomiccon.co.uk. We will be back very, very soon, and I
Mm,
think it's looking highly likely we're probably going to be talking about Mission Impossible. Maybe
yeah.
we'll rank the franchise whilst talking about our thoughts on Final Reckoning.
That's a good idea. Also, is this now a recurring thing of like I've got to do lists of deaths in horror films?
Maybe.
That could.
I
I
like it.
mean, watch this space for Halloween.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. So until next time, please do stay safe, stay well, and we'll see you very soon. Bye. Thanks for watching, Super Friends. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to hit the subscribe button just down below and hit the bell so that you can get notified whenever we release brand new videos. In fact, there's 2 more waiting for you to watch right here below. So what are you waiting for? Why not click play?